Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of our short-term Met Safe. So I know we talked last episode about what we thought we were going to do, free up some money, things like that. And usually I try and keep it as realistic as possible. I try and keep it through opening day, pretty much the same roster that I can. But there were too many issues I wanted to try to fix immediately. And if you're looking at the screen instead of just listening to me, you're going to see uh, you're going to see some changes, some trades. The lineup looks a little different, but we're going to run through the transaction log. I'll show you exactly what I did in the time that we were away. Um, if I could remember where exactly this was. Transactions logs. Okay. A couple trades to free up some money. First trade was we'll talk about the less consequential of the three I made. Nick Gordon we traded for. We traded for Sam Coonrod, who could have found some time, but I didn't really want to risk it, and it was better to get an injured pitcher who probably wasn't going to pitch for me off the roster for a piece that popped off in some of my last sims. He really had a breakout year in that one Rockies sim I mentioned. So getting him down at AAA, and hopefully he can take advantage of that opportunity down there. And with injury, I can pull him up, or hopefully he forces my hand. He's a lefty, which is kind of the theme of my off-season additions or pre opening day additions. As we said, scouting director Michael Hill, Rick Jamieson, and Ben Johnson all were signed. Um, Big trade number one. We got off of Tommy Pham's money. We sent him and a few other things to the Yankees. The $6 million wasn't doing anything for me, and I just didn't feel the need to carry him when I already disagreed with the signing in real life. Sent some filler, Humberto Mejia, Jordani Ventura, not filler, but theoretical prospect, Abraham Almonte, Dylan to break, and Jonathan Arayuz, getting Willie Calhoun in return. Also a lefty, but he also popped off, hit a bunch of home runs. And maybe it's the course field bias, but I like that opportunity as well. He'll get some work at left and right and at first, DH, and hopefully he can put some offensive juice into that lineup too. So I have options, which I think is the main point in the minors. And then really the big trade, Eduardo Escobar, Darren Ruff, and Vogelback, all theoretical dead money guys. I had to include pitching prospect Mike Vassell, which wasn't really my preferred method of getting off this money, but pitching prospects are so volatile and difficult to project that while it wasn't my favorite inclusion, the other options were much worse. So he was the logical trade. We got Justin Dunn, former real life Mets prospect, makes his way back. He's injured for the next 2 to 3 months. Shoulder issues seem to be his problem, and maybe he'll contribute as a long reliever, lefty specialist type guy, righty specialist type guy, not lefty. And the main key piece is Mr. Michael Ciani. And if you guys have seen anything about this game, Michael Ciani is pretty much what Jackie Bradley Jr. was to the last few iterations. Just a really elite left-hand hitting defensive outfielder. But there's that theme again, lefty. He'll be up at some point fairly soon, I would assume. These ratings are really just too good not to. But the left-handed hitting is kind of an issue with all. We'll go through the lineup, but with all the lefties I have in the lineup, having Michael Ciani right now might not be the best idea. He'll be up. He'll be up early. He's probably the first call up with an outfield injury, which is likely given the age and injury history of a lot of these guys. But getting him was worth including Mike Vassell, in my opinion, with the way pitching staffs kind of turn out. My preferred method of building a team is draft. Draft your hitters and trade for your pitchers, or sign your pitchers. So getting Michael Ciani on a cheap deal for the next 6 years is probably worth it. Couple other changes. We'll go through pitching staff first. Scherzer, Verlander, and Senga at the top. Carrasco as your 4 and Peterson as your 5. That's pretty much exactly what the real life Mets did. Peterson with a few more limits that Carrasco might also get. 21 batters faced. That's 2 times through the order, plus the top 3 third time, just as some wiggle room if he's cruising, and the 95 pitches as a limit as well. I tend not to go above 95 unless it's your top tier starters, which obviously Scherzer, Verlander, and Senga are. So they can go to 100, especially because Senga has a surprising amount of stamina, which is kind of cool. But yeah, those guys can pitch 100 pitches easy, and eventually Carrasco and Peterson might need to be bumped down to 90. So the pitching staff, the starting rotation, I should say, is kind of what I'm really comfortable with. And then the bullpen, a little less so. David Robertson as your closer. He looks like he's going to be really good for us. If a little bit overpriced, that's okay. But we don't really have any other avenue of getting some good relievers right now. So he'll pick up some saves. Tyler McGill as our stopper. He's got good stamina. He's got good stuff. He's got good pitches. So pitching 100, 120 innings out of the bullpen should be fine for him. And that's something we'll probably rely on him for. Also to eat up some high leverage innings. Brooks Raley and Adam Ottavino as our setup men. Raley's kind of making a lot of money for a setup man, but if he can kind of pitch to, something like what he's done the last 2 years, then I think we'll live with that. And if he's really floundering, we can always deal him. Same thing with Ottavino, except I'm more partial to Adam Ottavino because of what he's done in real life last year. So I don't foresee that really being an issue. Middle relief is where I think we have the real issues. And just like the real life Mets, the Diaz injury hurts because that bumps everybody up one. Dennis Santana looks like he'll be fine. He's out of options, and I'm not opposed to having a quick trigger with him, but I think he'll be fine. This changeup is bad, but if he was a sinker slider guy only, I think we'd have a lot less issues. Nogosek is also out of options, but same deal, except he's an extreme fly ball pitcher, which is not something we particularly like, especially with Nimmo in center and Canna in left. That's not the best outfield defense alignment. And some subpar pitches here. The slider, his changeup are not great. His movement is average, and his control's not great. So, low control, low movement, extreme fly ball. That's a high FIP and a lot of walks and a lot of bombs. So we'll see how he does. And we might need to upgrade his spot soon. Drew Smith, perfectly fine. No main concerns here, except for the extreme fly ball and the low movement. But his stuff is a little bit better. And really lone pitching prospect in the Mets upper system, Jose Butto, come up, long relief, spot starter, that kind of thing. So the logic is, you can do this in the game rather than real life, but you can jump Peterson and McGill and Butto in between, back and forth, the rotation and the bullpen, and have no real drop-off in the game, which you can't really do in real life. But something I foresee happening at some point soon is once Quintana comes back, maybe Peterson or Carrasco gets bumped, they go to the bullpen, and then we can have an upgrade for one of these 3, and then maybe get one more piece towards the back end, see who comes up on the trade market towards the trade deadline, and we'll see kind of how that turns out. But for the first couple months of the season, I think I'm okay living with this, just because your top of your pitching staff is just so good. And if I need to even get another starter and bump Cookie to the bullpen, I'll do that too. So that's the pitching staff. I think it's going to be good this year. I think the pitching staff assembled is pretty good, but you just have to wait and see. Probably need a few more back end guys at the very least. The lineup, I think, has had the most turnover, just based on the deals we made. So versus righties, first off, the catchers are in a quasi platoon where they play 50% of the time. Omar Narvaez is a bit better of a bat and a decent defensive catcher, whereas Nito is an atrocious offensive catcher and a stellar defender. So you get the best of both worlds with the two of them, and a 50-50 timeshare is pretty nice, rather than lefty righty is just every other day. Brett Beatty, our opening day first baseman. His first base potential defensively is Gold Glove caliber, and his offensive ratings are good enough right now that I don't foresee a big drop off in starting him at the year, or starting him for the year at the major league level. So I'm excited to have him here. His batted ball profiles are not great. He's a ground ball hitter with extreme pull, but I think he'll be fine. Jeff McNeil at second, no real question marks here. It's kind of what we expect. Luis Guillorme at third is something I didn't really foresee happening. Him and Jeff can always switch around. I'm not opposed to having him play some second just for the defensive ability. You know, a 60 grade third baseman versus 70 grade second baseman. It might be worth it when Jeff only drops 5. But this offensive profile is interesting at the very least, and something we can utilize. Lindor at short, and that's our infield. We signed Mr. Andrelton Simmons to be the backup, and spoiler alert, he is our third baseman against lefties in a platoon with Guillorme. This defensive ratings is a Gold Glove caliber third baseman. If as long as he develops quick enough, Gold Glove caliber second baseman. And Andrelton Simmons is one of my favorite in real life players. And in the game, we got him for 2 years, $2 million, team option on year number 2. And he's somebody I like keeping. He's a really good defender, decent base runner, decent pinch runner if necessary. Canna, Nimmo, Marte in the outfield, nothing different here. Tim LaCastro backing up, who I wasn't kind of surprised I kept as our backup center fielder. His defensive ratings are not anything special, but I guess the stealing, the base running, the pinch hitting are worth keeping him around for, which the real life Mets did at the same time. And then Pete Alonso DHing. I had questions about moving him to DH, just because I thought maybe he could get some added value from playing first. But with Beatty's ability to play first, I'd rather him get the development and the potential for a defensive first baseman. And then obviously if Beatty struggles, he goes down and Pete moves to first, and then we figure out DH. Mark Vientos, also on our opening day roster. He is also a really good defensive first baseman. He's got good batting potential, and he backs up at first for Beatty. He'll play some left for Canna, some right for Marte, and DH if Pete gets tired, which he shouldn't, playing DH. But excited about what he can bring for us. And that rounds out the bench, right? Defensive subs as Beatty, Simmons. Simmons should also be able to play third, just, in case. LaCastro backing up in the outfield. And then, Nimmo, Lindor, McNeil, Pete, Marte, Beatty, Narvaez, Canna, Guillorme, lefty, 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 and a switch hitter. That's a lot of lefties, which is why we're hesitant to put more on the bench. But the lineup looks good. We might have an issue versus lefty relievers, but I think it'll be fine. And then versus left-handed pitchers, Narvaez and Nito split time, and we pretty much just reverse Vientos and Beatty, and Simmons and Guillorme. So Simmons and Guillorme are in a platoon, and Vientos and Beatty are in a platoon, and they really just flip-flop. and that's the main difference here. Vientos and Beatty are very similar players. Just one is right-handed hitting and one is left-handed hitting. Um, and Simmons is good enough with the bat to play versus lefties. That avoid case is pretty nice towards the bottom of your order. He'll put balls in play. So versus lefties, we go Nimmo, Lindor, McNeil, Pete, Marte. Your top five don't change. But then we go Vientos, Canna, Narvaez, and Simmons. And we kind of play off of that. So, couple question marks, Vientos and Beatty, if they don't play well, what do we do there? If Simmons is atrocious, what do we do with him? Do we keep Nimmo in center? What if Canna's bad? There's a lot of what ifs with the lineup that also hold true in real life. But for us, at least, our question marks don't have. We try to eliminate the question marks and have options if they flounder, mostly down in AAA. Francisco Alvarez, we're going to do what we said we were going to do with him last episode. We're going to move him around. We'll play him at some first, maybe some third, and corners in the outfield for sure, just to get some versatility. And that way, if Beatty or Vientos or Canna all kind of flounder, we can pull him up, or an injury at catcher. We can pull him up and get him, 4 games a week, something like that, and he should be perfectly fine. Ronnie Mauricio, same deal with him. We're going to move him around the diamond. He's probably going to be an elite defensive left fielder, and that's probably where his value is going to come from. So we're going to start him there at the start of the year. Willie Calhoun, we talked about him. He'll be up at some point. Nick Gordon will be up at some point, and Siani will be up at some point. So these are the guys, and maybe even TJ Stewart, who knows? But these are the guys that will hopefully provide some insurance if some of the young guys flounder. The pitching staff here is not really that great. We moved Dylan Bundy down. Lucchese's down here. Denny Reyes is possible. Curtis will be up at some point. Brigham, maybe Hunter, maybe Ridings, maybe Yacobonis. But a lot of it depends on how they perform. And that's kind of the depth that I foresee having. So something that we could need at some point, just before we even get going, we could use another bullpen piece towards the back end, shutdown reliever, maybe a trade deadline rental. And we could maybe use another bat depending on how some of these guys go, some of these young guys, or Canna or Marte if they get hurt, or third base. So we have some things to watch out for, but we're hoping that this top 5 right here, the Nimmo, Lindor, McNeil, Pete, and Marte, we're hoping that they could kind of carry the lineup enough so that this 6 through 9, if you get even league average from the 6 through 9, I think we'll be okay. So let's go through season predictions. Oh, let's talk finances first. Finances, salaries, not great. That money that we saved really went towards some development budget and some scouting budget. But if we really need some money, we'll be fine. We could move off of Narvaez or Ottavino or Rayleigh, Hernandez, Lucchese, Mendick, Santana. These are guys that even Justin Dunn could theoretically be on the move if we need to move some money around, if we end up in a crunch. We got some money coming off too. I know that it's looking like the same, but Brigham, Curtis, Dunn, those are guys that theoretically we could save, $4 million on. Simmons, we could save another $1 million. A lot of these guys are arbitration that could not come back. Team option on Rayleigh. If we feel we can get his production at a cheaper price point. Narvaez and Ottavino, if they have stellar years, they could opt out. Canna has a team option, which we'll decide on. And Pete's for arbitration, which we would like to fix. We'd like to sign Pete Alonso to a longer term contract. He's 28, maybe like a 5, 6, 7 year deal, something along those lines. Maybe a couple team options towards the end, just in case he really falls off a cliff. And that provides us some security somewhere in the $25 million range, something like that. I think he would go for. But we'll mess around with that maybe next episode. I'm trying to keep these under 30 minutes. I know episode 1 was not under 30 minutes, but we're gonna shoot for that. We're gonna shoot for that like 20-minute marker. Um, but yeah, so let's talk about news. I forget where it is. I can never find it. Reports, preseason predictions. The AL East is projected to be a fantastic division, and this 88 win mark I think is more indicative of how tough their division is. I'm not sure if they did the balanced schedule in this game yet. I'm not sure if that's implemented, but a lot of good teams in this division who will be fighting for 2 spots maybe. The Yankees, the Rays, the Blue Jays are all pretty much projected to be the same team, and Baltimore just slightly behind, but they're predictions. Anything can change with talent change randomness, and things like that. The Twins projected to win the Central. White Sox behind, and then Cleveland with Kansas City and Detroit being bad again. I think that's totally possible. I think Cleveland might actually be better than this projected record and sneak in, but we'll see how that ends up turning out. And the Astros, the Mariners, the Rangers, the Angels, and Oakland. Everybody except Oakland is projected to be decent, at least, with Houston kind of running the table on everyone else. And Oakland, absolute dumpster fire. That could be a fun sim at some point, but really difficult to get them into a winning team. They really have nothing. No farm system, no tradable pieces left. Just perpetual rebuild. But top hitters projected for the American League: Yordan Alvarez, Aaron Judge, Mike Trout, Jose Ramirez. Those are all pretty much what you would expect. I think it's questionable that Yordan Alvarez plays 160 games, but if he does and you get those 51 bombs, then yes, Houston will be fantastic. Joey Gallo, they project him for a bounce back year with 51 home runs and a 207 batting average, but the game likes him every single year for some reason. Just because of this home run power in the eye. Those are just his only main offensive tools. Actually, really only offensive tools, but I guess the way the game stats are calculated, he'll be fine. Julio Rodriguez, Bo Bichette, Jose Miranda, Shohei Ohtani, and Andrew Vaughn. That's pretty close to what you would also expect. These guys are all cream of the crop, and this top 10 is probably what you would expect, given what we know about who they are as players and ratings and things like that. Top pitchers: Jacob deGrom, Garrett Cole, Framber Valdez, Shane McClanahan, Dylan Cease, Shane Bieber, Shohei Ohtani, Christian Javier, Luis Castillo, and Drew Rasmussen. That's pretty close to what you would expect as well. Rasmussen wouldn't get this many innings, but in the game, there's no real limit on them. So I guess that's why they're projecting him for such a good season. National League, the NL East, the Braves are projected for 97 wins, and we're projected for 90 at this point in time. That's fine with me. Get in the playoffs, anything happens. And I don't think Atlanta is really that much better. So this could easily be flip-flopped. Philly and Marlins average to below average, and Washington's projected to be bad. So pretty much what you would also expect. I think Philly might be better than that, depending on how long Bryce Harper's out for the game. I don't know. NL Central: Cardinals, Brewers, Reds, Pirates, Cubs. This bottom 3 is also pretty bad. So seeing this is not unexpected. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to talk about here. In the West, the Dodgers and the Padres are your cream of the crop. So something that we'll probably be seeing as your top 4 is your Dodgers, your Padres, Cardinals, Mets, and Braves, or top 5, I should say. That's who we should watch out for. It's a pretty clear top tier of teams in the National League, where the American League is a little bit more bunched up. Arizona should be serviceable. I think they'd take over 500 record. Giants and Rockies projected to be average and terrible, respectively. And then your top hitters: Acuna, Mookie Betts, Michael Harris, Pete Alonso, Lars Nootbaar, Trey Turner, Freddie Freeman, Spencer Steer. That's interesting. Austin Riley and Derek Hall. Spencer Steer, he was up last year, didn't do a whole lot. So I'm kind of wondering where they see this drastic improvement coming from to turn into a top 10 hitter in the league. But I guess we'll watch his season and see how that turns out. And Derek Hall, cool ratings. I think he just got hurt in real life, unfortunately. Um, Played well last year. 804 OPS, 121 OPS plus half a WAR in 42 games. That's pretty good. From a left-hand hitting first baseman, pretty good. So we'll see what kind of season he turns out to. Everybody else is pretty much expected. I think Lars Nootbaar is interesting, and that's really the only one that you kind of wouldn't normally see, but everybody else pretty much makes sense. And then pitchers, Corbin Burns, Max Scherzer, Blake Snell, Spencer Strider, Brandon Woodruff, Julio Urias, Yu Darvish, Verlander, Alcantara, and Gallen. That's pretty much exactly if you pulled up every National League pitcher and said who are your top 10, you'd get pretty close to this list. One issue with Darvish is he always gets hurt. For some reason, he always gets hurt. So I would love if he didn't, but there's a good chance he does, and that would be really unfortunate. He's got a lot of pitches, man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's pretty cool. That's probably where a lot of his ratings value comes from. So yeah, that's projections. When we come back, we'll play through opening day. We'll get started, and yeah, we'll see you soon. Thanks so much. Bye.